Hello, welcome to EPG Pashala Spanish. My name is Naveen Ansari and I teach Spanish in the Center of Spanish, Portuguese, Italian and Latin American Studies in Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. We are in the paper entitled Spanish Grammar 1. In the previous 6 modules, we have covered the informal way of giving command and issuing instructions, verbal periphrases, the periphrastic future and verbs which are used to talk about future plans and actions, useful words related to going on vacation, climate of Spain, some of the time expressions, and also we have learned about the prepositions por and para, and also some idiomatic expressions used with the preposition por and para, and the difference in the usage of different verbs having identical meaning but different uses. In this module entitled Repaso 5, we are going to revise the main points covered in the previous 6 modules, which will help you not only in a better understanding but also in remembering the relevant aspects of its usage in your communication. So whenever we need to get something done from others, we use the instruction mode to tell them what we want them to do. This mode is called the imperative mode in Spanish. For example, Maria, finish your breakfast, or stop the car, I want to get off. So we are going to revise how to give instructions to one or more people with whom we are on familiar terms. Thus, we are going to learn the tu form and vosotros form of imperative in Spanish. In this repaso, we are not going to cover the usted form and ustedes form of imperative, the tu form of imperative. So for the formation of an imperative, we need to first determine whether the verb is AR ending verb, ER ending or IR ending. If the verb is AR ending, generally the imperative or command form of any AR ending verb is the conjugation of the same in third person singular form, or in other words, we take the stem of the AR ending verb and add a to it. For example, if the verb is hablar, so we remove the ending AR and add a to it. So hablar becomes habla. Same way, if the verb is trabajar, so trabajar, the command of trabajar will be trabaja, and if it is llorar, so the command will be llora. Hablar means to speak, but when we give instruction and the tu form of command habla will mean speak. Same way, trabajar means to work, but when we say trabaja, it means work. Now, the imperative form of some AR ending regular verbs are enviar, and it will be envía, escuchar will be escucha, ayudar will be ayuda, and esperar will be espera. And envía means send, escucha will mean listen, ayuda means help, and espera means wait. The third person singular. Now we are going to talk about ER and IR ending verbs. So the third person singular form is used as an imperative for both these verbs ending, whether it is ER or IR. For example, the imperative form of some ER ending regular verbs are, if the verb is aprender, so the imperative tu form will be aprende. Creer, the imperative will be cree. Beber, the imperative will be bebe. Prometer, the imperative will be promete. And esconder, the imperative form will be esconde. So aprende means learn, cree means believe, bebe means drink, promete means promise, and esconde means hide. The imperative form of some IR ending irregular verbs are, so abrir, the imperative form will be abre. Permitir, the imperative will be permite. Admitir, the imperative will be admite. And discutir, the imperative form, to form will be discute. Abre means open, permite means allow, admite means admit, and discute means discuss. This is true, this kind of conjugation and the formation of imperative to form is true for all regular verbs of the three categories, except some of them which are called irregular imperatives. So, they mostly pertain to the group of yogo verbs. By yogo verbs, I mean verbs whose first person singular form in the present tense ends in go. They lose their go ending and thus become imperative except for the verb hacer. Now, these irregular two form verbs or these irregular verbs are decir. So, the first person singular in present tense of the verb decir is digo, but the imperative will be di. Hacer, the first person is hago, but imperative is has. Poner, the first person singular present tense was yo pongo, but the imperative will be pon. Likewise, tener was tengo, but the imperative will be ten. Venir was vengo, but the imperative is when, and salir is salgo in the present tense yo form, but the imperative to form will be sal. Apart from these verbs, there is one more verb which is ser, which is also irregular in imperative. So, the to form of imperative of the verb ser is se, but be careful that it is not the first person singular form of the verb saber. So, the imperative form, to form of the verb ser, which is se, means be. Now, after having revised the to form of imperative, let us revise the vosotros form of imperative or command. The vosotros form is used when we need to give instructions to more than one person or a group of people. Since we address the group directly on one-to-one basis, that is why it is the vosotros form, and you already know that the vosotros form is also informal form of communication. So, the vosotros form of the imperative is formed by removing the r and adding d to the verb. For example, if the verb is hablar, so the vosotros form of imperative or command will be hablad. So, just remove the r and add d to the verb. Same way, if the verb is comer, so the imperative to form will be comed. And if the verb is ir ending verb, and that is vivir, then the imperative form will be vivid. So, this was all about the command or the imperative in Spanish. Now, we are going to talk about the verbal periphrasis. So, what is a periphrasis? Well, a periphrasis is a verbal forms composed of two verbs, an auxiliary verb and another in an impersonal form. By impersonal form means the verb can be in infinitive form, infinitive meaning it will not be conjugated, or the second verb will be in gerund form, or the second verb can be in participle form. So, the auxiliary verb loses some of its original meaning and acquires a particular meaning on being associated with one of those impersonal forms. Now, let us see some of the most common verbal periphrases with infinitive form. Infinitive meaning when the second verb will not be conjugated. So, the first one in the list we have is tener que. So, tener que plus infinitive meaning to have to. Deber. Deber means should or must, which can also be used with a verb in infinitive form. Haber que, that you have learned I que, so haber que plus infinitive, meaning it is necessary. Poder plus infinitive, meaning can or to be able to. Deber de plus infinitive, meaning must something. Soler plus another verb in infinitive form. So, soler plus infinitive meaning usually. Empezar a or comenzar a plus infinitive. Empezar a or comenzar a means to begin to or to start. Acabar de plus infinitive, meaning to have just done something. Alcanzar a plus infinitive, meaning to be able to do something. Cesar de plus infinitive, meaning to cease to do something. Dejar de plus infinitive, meaning to stop doing something. And estar por plus infinitive, meaning to be on the verge of doing something. So, all these are the auxiliary verbs that we have just seen, like tener que, deber, haber que, poder. So, it will be conjugated according to the person, whether the person is first person singular, second person or third person singular, or first person plural, second or third person plural. And the second verb, which will be in infinitive form, will not be conjugated. Apart from these, there are few more, like poder plus infinitive, meaning to be able to do something. Ponerse a plus infinitive, meaning to start to do something. Quedar por plus infinitive, meaning to remain to do something. Llegar a plus infinitive, meaning to come to do something. Volver a plus infinitive, meaning to return to do something or to do something again. Tardar en plus infinitive means to take a long time to do something. So, these were some common verbal periphrases or the verbs used with infinitive. Now, let's revise or let's talk about the verbal periphrases of gerund form. It is the union of an auxiliary verb and the gerund. Some of the verbs used with gerund are estar, ir, llevar, seguir, continuar, and andar. So, these are some verbs used with gerund form of another verb. Now, for referring to a future which is very near or recent future, we use the periphrastic future tense, which is formed by the verb of movement ir plus a plus another verb. So, ir means to go, and it always take the preposition a, and after the preposition a comes another verb. So, what is the conjugation of the verb ir? In present tense, it is yo voy, tú vas, él, ella, usted va, nosotros vamos, vosotros vais, ellos, ellas, ustedes van, which means to go. So, for example, of this structure, that is ir plus a plus verb in infinitive. For example, voy al cine, meaning I am going to the cinema. So, likewise, there are or you can form many examples, or you can use this verb structure for talking about near future or future plans, something which you are going to do in near future. Now, when we are talking about near future, when we talk about vacations, for talking about vacations in Spanish, we need to know some useful verbs in Spanish which will help you to plan your vacation accordingly. So first, let's start with the transport. Transport is transporte, and it can be en coche, meaning in car, en tren, meaning in train, en avión, meaning in plane, en barco, meaning in ship, or en ave. Ave es tren de alta velocidad, meaning high speed train which is found in Spain. So these are the modes of transport which we normally use for going to some place. For accommodation, so accommodation is known as alojamiento in Spanish. So the alojamiento can be en un hostal, meaning in a hostel, en un albergue, albergue is another kind of or type of hostel, en un camping, meaning at a campsite, en un hotel, meaning in a hotel, or en una casa alquilada, meaning in a rented house. Places are known as lugares. So the places can be una playa, meaning a beach, unas ruinas mayas, meaning Mayan ruins, una montaña, meaning mountain, or un monumento, meaning monument. Also, we should know what type of travelers we are. So type of traveler in Spanish is tipo de viajero, and some of type of travelers are aventurero, meaning adventurous, cultural, meaning cultural, deportista, meaning sporty, and turista, meaning of tourist nature. And what kind of activities we do normally when we go somewhere? Some of the activities are visitar monumentos, meaning to visit monuments, probar comida tradicional, meaning to try traditional food, ir a un concierto, meaning to go to a concert, and tomar el sol, meaning to sunbathe. Now some of the type of travelers are, as we have seen earlier, aventurero, meaning adventurous one. So who are these travelers? In Spanish, I'm going to explain them. Quien pertenece a este tipo de viajero gusta de tomar tours a lugares exóticos, irse con solo un boleto de ida asegurado, explorar sitios inhóspitos, en pocas palabras, sentir la adrenalina correr, cuídate y disfruta sus vacaciones. Ecológico. Ecológico quiere decir or means ecological or environment friendly. So these kind of travelers are: el viajero ecológico es feliz en la naturaleza y cuida el entorno como a sí mismo. No enferma con desechos tóxicos el medio ambiente. Planta al menos un árbol en su vida y contribuye así para tener un mundo mejor, como bosques, mar o campo son la recomendación. Pasa unas verdes y oxigenadas vacaciones. Amante de las multitudes, means lover of crowd. No sabes estar solo o con pocas personas a tu alrededor. Te encanta la fiesta y los grupos de gente. Eres bastante sociable y no es raro que invites a más de uno a pasar las vacaciones contigo. Las grandes y modernas ciudades son el lugar ideal para ti en esta época. Espiritual, meaning spiritual. Entonces, who is this kind of traveler? Quizá sin darte cuenta deseas encontrar paz interna, conocerte más. Los retiros espirituales, visitar lugares religiosos famosos, meditar y planear cambios positivos en tu vida va a dar a tus vacaciones el sabor que buscas. Now, as you know what type of traveler you are, now let's choose Spain for our destination. In Spain, there are various types of climate. Let's quickly see the types of climate found in Spain, and you can also see them in the picture. So the type of climates that we have in Spain are el clima oceánico, el clima continental, el clima mediterráneo, el clima de montaña y el clima subtropical. So these are the types of climate found in Spain. Now we are going to revise the use of por and para. So in Spanish, both the prepositions por and para means for most of the times. It is one of the topics which confuse Spanish learning students. Thus, for a non-native speaker, it is very important to learn when por and para are used, as changing one with another will change its meaning completely. So we use por to indicate means of doing something, to indicate cause, result, or reason of something, to express apology or gratitude, to indicate price of something, to indicate time, meaning por la mañana, which means in the morning, por la tarde, which means in the afternoon or evening, y por la noche, meaning at night. Por is also used when it is followed by a verb in infinitive. Then it expresses an action that has not been completed. It is also used to indicate speed or rate. For example, 8 km por hora o 10%. It is used to indicate exchange, or also used for physical transition, and it means through some place. So when we go through some place, we use the preposition por, which means through. It is also used to mean on behalf of and to mean per. Per, for example, me pagan por mes, which means they pay me per month. Por is also used to indicate duration of an action, and it is used with the verb estar, which means to be in the mood of or feel like having or doing something, when it is used with the verb estar. Por is also used in passive constructions. So these were the uses of the preposition por. We use the preposition para to indicate destination of a person or place, to indicate purpose, to indicate future time, to indicate use or function of something, to indicate deadlines, to give an opinion, to mean in order to when used with a infinitive, or and with the verb estar when it is used, then it means to be about to. Now these were the most common uses of the prepositions por and para. In Spanish also there are some verbs which can be quite tricky, like the preposition por and para. Now these verbs look like that they mean one thing, but they are used in a different context or meaning. You have already learned one pair of these verbs, that is ser and estar. Now ser and estar, as you know, both means to be, but the use of the ser and estar is completely different. Now it is necessary to know these verbs to avoid making common mistakes among non-native speakers. So, these verbs which can create confusion are saber and conocer. Now, saber and conocer, both these verbs mean to know. Now, the verb saber and conocer, even though look that they mean the same thing, which is to know, but they are used in a different context. Thus, they are not interchangeable. By interchangeable, we mean that when you are supposed to use the verb saber, you cannot use the verb conocer, and vice versa. Pedir and preguntar. Pedir and preguntar is another set of verbs which can create confusion, as they both means to ask, but their use is different, and like saber and conocer, they are also not interchangeable. Llevar y tomar. The verbs llevar and tomar both means to take. Now, just like other verbs mentioned above, these two verbs are also not interchangeable. Jugar and tocar. Now, the verb jugar and tocar both means to play. These two verbs are also not interchangeable, meaning you cannot use jugar when you are supposed to use the verb tocar. Salir and dejar. The verbs salir and dejar both means to leave. These two verbs are also not interchangeable. Solicitar and aplicar. The verbs solicitar and aplicar both means to apply, and be careful that these verbs are also not interchangeable. Thus, in this module, you have revised the informal way of giving command and is issuing instructions, verbal periphrases, the periphrastic future, which is ir plus a plus infinitive, and verbs which are used to talk about future plans and actions. Useful words related to going on vacation. We also mentioned the type of climate of Spain, the preposition or the use of prepositions por and para, and also the difference in the usage of different verbs having identical meaning but different uses. Now, the Repaso 5 comes to an end, but if you want to know more, if you want to learn more about all these topics or the grammatical aspects covered in this module, you should see or refer back to e-text, as it has got learn more section, and also it has got exercises which will help you in better understanding of the topics covered in this module. Thank you.